Hey y'all,
How's it going, guys?
I'm Jay,
And I'm Chris the Bird Nerd.
and
We
we
are
are the
the Bird
Bird
Brains.
Brains.
That was like slow motion.
You were laughing. You gotta stay focused. You'll
I
laugh
know.
after.
I just I can't do it.
Well,
I'd
I've
be a
got
terrible
my.
actor.
I finally hung.
Oh, you did? I didn't even notice that. Nice.
Yeah, some it's courtesy of the old wifey, some bird art.
That's
So it's
awesome.
not just a naked wall behind me anymore. So I'm not gonna pan the camera around and show you that the rest of this room has still not been organized, but
That's all right.
this view here looks better.
I
And I
like it.
did,
Looks good.
I did, I think I'll talk about it more on a future episode because there may be some more of it in the works. But I did just get, and I did post it to my story on my Instagram last week. But we had an art show at this kid's school, like a fundraising art show. And this artist, she only does birds, and they look like paintings, but they are like paper mache layers of
Oh,
birds. So
wow.
they're like kind of 3D. So we
Okay.
got two yellow hammers, which is a woodpecker that's also the state bird of Alabama.
Nice.
And but there may or may not be some members of the JV in some future art. So um, maybe we'll talk about that on the podcast another time. She might be a cool person to have on sometime,
Yeah,
actually.
that'd be way cool.
But
It's
yeah,
funny when
so
you mentioned the woodpecker. Back in the day, for my fifth grade geography project, we had to pick a state and the capital and do like research on it and do this big presentation. I chose Alabama and good old Birmingham, and I had a picture of the woodpecker on there for the state bird. So
not the capital. Everyone thinks not the
no,
capital.
I guess that's true. I didn't do it on the capital, but I did do it on Birmingham because they had some
Okay.
cool geographical. But I did do the state bird, the woodpecker. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, and it's Alabama's very interesting. There's not very many states like this where the capital is not the largest city. There are some other ones like Missouri's another one.
And like
Um,
Florida,
yeah, I don't even
Tallahassee.
Tallahassee. Yeah, I guess Jacksonville and Miami are bigger.
Yeah.
But so Alabama, Montgomery's the capital. Huntsville and Mobile are both now bigger than Montgomery, and Birmingham is also. So there's
Wow.
Montgomery's the fourth biggest city in Alabama, and there's really only those are your four big cities. So it's the smallest of the big cities. But I do love it here. Shout out Alabama. Great state.
Nice. Yeah.
Great
A
state for
little
birds.
mini geography session.
There you go. You never know what you're going to get on one of these podcasts.
Right?
Um, and today's a fun one. Today's we're going to do a little fun. We did this episode one of this little mini series. Shoot, several months ago now.
Yeah, quite a while.
Um, but we thought it might be time for a fun one. So we're going to do another episode of Birds We Don't Keep and Why.
The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. Bird Brains, Bird Brains. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. Bird Brains, Bird Brains.
And, you know, we could go really cheeky and just list off, ostriches, why I don't keep ostriches. But I thought, let's try to confine it to the obvious ones. Although I will say there is somebody near me that has like um, they're starting like a petting zoo, and they did have some big birds, so it's not out of the
Oh,
question.
really? Yeah.
The speaking of zoos, we need to plug the old sponsor.
Yeah, good old New Zealand. And
Yeah.
with that, a big thank you. We've actually had quite a few of you reach out, purchase some products and some seed. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying the Bird Brains discount for 10% on any and all of the products and the seed items. We are working with our sponsors, getting more different types of seed products and different types of toys and enrichment activities for your birds that are more focused towards finches and some of the smaller birds that I know a lot of you guys own as you watch these podcasts and our channels. And so, yeah, just huge appreciation to you guys. Big shout out to New Zealand for being a great company, being a great sponsor, and getting some pretty awesome products out there for us to bring to our birds at a good price, and working with us and being pretty awesome. So
Yeah, and I got my first request this week of I really like this seed. I've had good success with it. Can you get New Zealand to carry it so I can get it easier?
nice.
So I got
Yeah.
to send that over to them. But um, love the feedback. Even if you're thinking, well, I already have seed or I get it locally. First of all, just want to quickly explain, and we're going to touch on this in future episodes, I'm sure, but qualities of seed vary greatly.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of brands um, that are really good. I personally think Hagen's the best, but Higgins also good. Rowdy Bush is good. The who else am I thinking of?
Uh,
What's there's a I'm blanking on the other one, but there's Volkman's
Volkman. Yeah.
pretty
I was
good.
thinking it started with a Z, but it's a V. Yeah.
hmm and then there's some other ones, and I'm not saying like your bird won't survive on the cheap stuff you get at the grocery store. I don't want to give free ads. But I
Yeah.
will say, um, if you really want to breed birds and have birds that are thriving with really vibrant colors, the list of companies you want to buy from narrows pretty
Yeah.
quickly. And then Hagen through Hari they are they have like a research institute. That's what Hari is,
Yeah.
where they have like their birds and they do like diet. It's all very humane and from
Right.
they play with the birds. I see videos of it all the time. They're pet birds that are just happen to be enrolled in a scientific study is what's going on. But so
Right.
they've actually done the research of like, done feather analysis and all these things to make sure that these birds are getting a complete and balanced diet. And I mean, I'm going to do a video pretty soon. Einstein's molting right now, so I'm saving his
Mm.
old feathers to compare to new feathers. But
Oh, nice. Nice.
the uh, the quality does make a difference. You can tell in
Yep.
your birds.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, and when you're looking at seed, Jay, it's not just the different types of seed, but it's also the freshness of seed, right? I mean, you don't want bags of seed that have been sitting in a warehouse for years on end and are super dusty and old
I'm going to
and
say the
sometimes moldy,
dustiness.
exposed to the elements, things like that. So it's taking all of that into consideration as well. And Hagen and Hardy Volkman, they have better specialized finch seed mixes, which
Mhm.
provide some more of the different varieties of smaller seeds, which is really good for our most of our finches that we keep, right? Your wax bills, a lot of your Australian finches that eat those really small seeds and eat a lot of them, and so they do a great job at making some pretty good mixes specified to the smaller finch species, and also your larger hook bills like for Einstein.
Yeah, and they've got their Tropomix, their egg food already has like little carrots and stuff in it, so it's like less things I have to do to make good wholesome egg food. Yeah, it's they've sponsored me now for like a year and some change, and it's been awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
wicked.
um, get onto the website, go over to Perchville on the New Zealand website, and get you some. Use code BirdBrains, 10% off. That's the end of our little soapbox there.
Yeah, and let us know if you've bought something, first of all, and let us know if there's something on there that you would like to see in the future. We've got a really good working relationship with our partners, and we want to bring items, make those items available for you guys and for your birds. So keep that communication going back and forth with us so that we can continue to evolve this catalog and make sure that we're providing the right products for you guys.
Yeah, we're not getting paid. So this
No,
is
no,
the number one motivation for us here is getting the good stuff to y'all.
100%.
Um, so, please take advantage. You know, so all right, let's have some fun. So, um, birds we don't keep and why. You want me to go first? Or you want to go first? You
Yeah,
got one
yeah.
ready?
Kick
All
us
right.
off, man.
Hyacinth macaws, and I don't keep them because I don't have enough money. Um, that's why I don't keep hyacinth macaws. A right now in 2024, a well-bred, hand-fed hyacinth macaw is going for north of $30,000,
Yeah,
and so that's just the bird. They have a beak like a hydraulic jaws of life. So even a regular parrot cage won't do it. You have to have a special, even stronger one. And then they eat things like macadamia nuts, which are
yep.
themselves
Very
not
expensive.
cheap. So
Yeah.
yeah, because I do not have a trust fund, have not won the lottery, um, because y'all haven't, sent me oodles of money. I do not currently keep a hyacinth macaw. One day I would very much like to, but today is not that day.
It's funny you started off with the hyacinth macaw because that is my favorite bird in the whole world. That is, if you guys notice, that's the logo on
Hmm.
my all of my channels. That's what I started off with. I probably will never own one for exactly what Jay just described, but they are my favorite bird. And anytime I see one, I have to go hold it and I just stare at them. They are magical, majestic birds. I love them, but probably will never own one. I'm too poor and not willing to risk that amount of money. I'd probably go buy me a brand new truck and still save some money on it compared to a hyacinth macaw over all the years. So
Yeah, I definitely would name it Harley, and I'd love it, but it would be real hard to explain to my kids why they can't go to college because Daddy has a Harlequin macaw or a hyacinth macaw, I mean.
a hyacinth, yeah.
Yeah. All right. What about you?
I love it. Yeah, so let's stay in the big hook bills.
Mhm.
I actually love hook bills, and if Jay, we've talked about our dream aviaries in a few episodes back, and I would if I could make me some dream aviaries, I would have some specialized to the larger hook bills because I actually really do love them and am attracted to them. But there's two species that I probably will never own. That would be a cockatoo, probably most of the cockatoo family, specifically the umbrella cockatoo, and yellow fronted Amazons. They scare me to death. I can't read them. They are bipolar
Mm.
and very loud, but beautiful birds. And if you have one, all of your neighbors will know that you have one because they'll hear them even if they're inside of your house. But for those reasons, I probably would never own any of those of the larger hookbills just due to the sheer noise that they have and they scare the crap out of me because I like my fingers. I don't want them to be go missing and there's a good chance of that. So with some of these larger parrots, but yeah, we're gonna go with them.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Mina's starlings, that whole genre. They are incredible talkers, really, really smart. I think magpies also in that family, and there's videos all over the internet of like in Australia, um, minor birds like or magpies, I guess, figuring out that like people like money, so they'll like go get cash from who knows where and trade it to you for treats. And I'd love to have one. This is a kind of a funny specific thing. It's a diet issue. So they are insectivores, and you can feed them
Yep.
pellets. So it's not that I couldn't feed them. I definitely could keep them alive. The issue is that birds that are pure insectivores and larger, and they eat, you can feed them like little mice and stuff, but then
Hmm.
they have the poop of a carnivore.
Yeah.
And so, what goes in must come out. And the, it's just, I am not in a position, they're not even really that big. Some of your starlings and miners are not that big, but I don't want to clean up meat poop. So that's why I don't have one.
Funny enough, we actually had a magpie as a pet.
Hmm.
growing up, and incredibly smart bird. Holy cow! We found it. It was like injured as a baby, like it still was being fed, and we took it home and raised it. We had it for it. We didn't have it for too long, but it already, like, was starting to talk, things like that. We would just go catch worms and grasshoppers and stuff in the backyard and feed it. I mean, that's really what we raised it on. But yeah, had a baby magpie back in the day for a little while. It was a fun bird, but yeah, they can be kind of mean too. So
Yeah,
um,
I could deal with mean. I can't deal with the smell.
yeah, yeah, no, their turds were not very fun, especially when it
Yeah,
was your turn to clean the cage.
yeah.
So, all
What about you?
right. Okay. We're gonna go jump into some of the smaller birds, probably, and this is an entire species that I don't think I'll ever own, and that would be the weavers. And I think you have a couple, don't you, Jay?
I have a
Um,
trio.
you got a
I'd like
trio.
to have a, so they, the ideal ratio is one male to three females.
Okay.
And then I right now only have two because one of my females colored up turned out to be another male, which is a no-no. So, and actually, I sold that bird like 2 years ago, and I just got a Facebook strike for doing it the other day.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, it's from like, I guess it was a year ago. It's from like August of last year, and I just now got a notification from Facebook this week that I broke the Facebook rule trying to sell a bird. So, who knows?
Oh
But yeah,
man.
so
Yeah, I don't
why
think
wouldn't you own
I'd
them?
I think just due to their aggressiveness, I think you kind of have to specialize the cages towards them, and bigger aviaries are better. They do build their own nests, and they build bigger nests, which can be cool, right? They have a name of weavers, and they can weave some pretty amazing nests. But definitely aggressive to other birds. Wouldn't really be able to house them with any of the finches that I have, and I don't think I like them enough to build their own aviary or setting for just them. And so I think that's probably why I wouldn't ever own them.
Yeah, I've had them pretty much the whole time I've had finches. I like them a lot. The males are just so beautiful.
Yeah.
I did keep mine in my aviary for a little while, and there was not a problem until breeding season. Once the male started weaving, he blocked off fully about a 5 foot section of the aviary where no other birds were allowed in. And then he was mean out past there. So, but I didn't want to get rid of him. So my weavers live in my parrot flight with my cockatiels, my budgies, and a pair of canaries and a pair of doves. And everybody pretty much holds their own. And I did put a palm plant in there, and they did start to weave pretty quickly, which is really cool. So, like, basically, you go in one day, the plant's just there. The next day, there was like a full circle, and they were starting to build the nest. And then my cockatiels tore it up every time they tear it up. So, what I might even try to do it when my holding cages, my bigger holding cages that I have now,
Uh-huh.
free up at the end of this breeding season. I may move them into one of those with a palm plant and see if I can't get some action on them because they seem willing to breed, and because of how they breed, they don't pair like most finches. So
Right.
you get one male, and he keeps a harem of like two to three females, and he'll build each one a nest, and kind of he sort of is the patrols the area, and they each do their own thing. So could potentially even get multiple clutches at once out of the same male.
Nice. Nice.
Um, so I would like to actually, I've never bred them, um, but I would like to actually try to breed them here shortly, and I think I'm going to. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice. That'd be cool. You
Mhm.
have to let me know. I know my older brother Bob, he had I think he had a male and two females.
Mhm.
And he had them probably for like a year and a half, but then he eventually ended up selling them just because the male became super aggressive, and same with he had a wide eye
Mhm.
male and just beat up his birds, and so he got rid of all of those just because he didn't really have a different place he could put them that was big enough for them to really you know flourish and have a good environment. So he ended up rehoming them. But
Yeah, and they're not technically a finch; they're a weaver.
right,
but they're still way up in the same. I mean, they're passerines, but they are, they're a little bit different. They fly differently. They're shaped a little differently, and then the male makes this like hiss noise
Uh-huh.
as part of his territorial thing. So I mean, I like having them. They definitely are one of those. Oh, what's that birds?
Yeah.
When they're in color. But they are definitely not a beginner bird. Not one I'd
Yeah.
recommend for a beginner.
Right. I agree.
Um, Speaking of birds that I would not recommend for a beginner, there may be some repeats from the last one of these. Sorry, y'all, it's late, and we did that months ago. But
Yeah.
I do want to say so. It's sort of similar vein, the Widas.
Yeah.
Um, I have kept a pair of pin-tailed Widas in the past, and that male was the most aggressive finch I've ever had, bar none. I mean, he literally
Yeah.
went after other birds, like claws out, like
Uh-huh.
talons. Not
Yep.
even just his beak, but I mean, he was absolutely vicious. And I bought him. I've told you the whole story before, Chris, but I bought him off a guy that was, I want to say I paid $50 for the pair. Now, this was 15 years ago, but still
Right.
just, and in hindsight, he was pretty happy to sell me those birds.
Oh, I'm sure he was.
Yeah,
The hard thing, Jay, is I mean they are the males are incredibly beautiful, right? The females they just stay your generic brown
they
for the
look
most
kind of like a
part.
weaver. Yeah.
Yeah, but the males, man, with I mean their tails are this long, some of them, and
Hmm.
when you get them in a huge aviary and they're flying and that tail's kind of flying behind them, they look like a kite, with a big tail. They're beautiful birds, but again, yeah, incredibly aggressive. I mean, you have to specialize an entire large space just for them, or maybe house larger birds with them, like what you do with your weavers, for them to semi
Even then,
coexist.
I don't think I mean, maybe teals, but I don't think they could even live with budgies. I mean, that's how mean they are. And there is
Yeah,
somebody I know who's breeding them. So Burns Aviaries down in Australia, he breeds them, but he's got like a huge, like 30-meter aviary, like Tony Arnold size, similar thing.
yeah,
Like
nice.
it could be a big like cockatoo aviary, or it could be for weavers. And then you also to breed them, they're a parasitic brooder. So what
Yeah,
that means is they lay eggs. They trick another bird into raising their young, and their number one target is the Saint Helena's waxbill. So they have to be naive. So they figure it out. The host bird figures it out eventually. It's like, well, this
hmm,
one egg looks a little different, and all of a sudden, it has one or two giant babies that kick my babies out of the nest. So
yeah.
um, they he had to get like 30 pairs of St. Helena's just to breed like 10
Jeez.
Widas. So yeah, maybe one day if I had a zoo, but
Yeah.
in the current circumstances, not doing Widas.
I would love some, say, Helenas. I don't know if I've ever seen those in real life, actually.
I've seen
But
them
I
for
would,
sale. I mean, I've seen red eareds and commons, which
yeah,
they all kind of look alike, but those are the ones that Aladdin has that are wild in Hawaii. And
yeah. It's so
here
cool.
shortly, we're still trying to figure out if anybody's ever shipped birds from Hawaii to the mainland. Let us know. I've been
Yeah,
talking with Aladdin. I haven't really talked to you about this, Chris, but I've been talking with Aladdin separately. And I think he may have talked to you also, but we think we might be able to. We're not sure about shipping to Hawaii, but we think we could ship from Hawaii. And
right.
then we also have to figure out the legality of if we catch those birds because they're invasive there, can you then catch them out of the wild where they're invasive? Would never do it where a bird is natural, but they're not supposed to be there. So it's a better deal for them to be in captivity than to be,
Right.
eradicated. And then, um, would it be worth it because you have to deworm them? Who knows what they've got from being in the wild. So,
Right.
and I deworm all my birds for the record, but most of the birds I deworm, I don't think even have worms. It's prophylactic. Wild birds probably have worms.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
amongst other, who knows what other fun stuff. So it's kind of a risk, but would be cool to get St. Helena's.
Yeah, I think that would be cool.
And I enjoyed when I had red ears. I don't have them anymore, but similar species. I enjoyed having them around the aviary. They're like your orange cheeks. They're active. They do the
Yeah,
tail wag thing. They sing. They have a really pretty song. So I
nice.
wouldn't mind having some of those
Yeah,
at all.
drop some comments down below if anybody listening currently raises or breeds that species. I'd love to even just see how many exist in the US or throughout the world. So let us
Yeah,
know. Love to hear.
absolutely. All right, I
So,
think it's your turn.
okay, so I'm going to jump back up to a little bit of a bigger bird, kind of your mid-size parrots. And this is broad. I would probably generalize most of the species, but most of your conures
Mhm.
are not my favorite, which is funny because I owned a green cheek conure and I loved him to death, and he was one of my favorite birds. Mostly like your Sunday conures, your Nanday conures, or Janday, depending on if they what species they are. A lot of your fronted conures, I probably would never own, and the biggest reason would be for sound. They are incredibly loud birds that just have this ear piercing squawk all the time. um,
Mhm.
my green cheek conure, we literally, it was like a day after they said he was weaned is when we took him, and so he was super young, and I didn't have him with any other parrots, obviously. So we actually trained him to whistle when he wanted attention or needed something. So instead of squawking, he whistled. So he actually was a pretty quiet bird, which was really awesome, and I loved that. But most of your conures, especially if you put them together in like a flock setting or pairs, they're very loud, and
They just scream all the time.
they
All the
do.
time.
They just scream. They can be great companions. I think a lot of like your Sunday conures and Janday conures, they're pretty temperamental and usually typically only choose one person that they bond with for the most part. And so sometimes that's difficult if you want them as a family bird. It could, you got the loudness, and then they may only specialize to or bond with one person throughout your family, things like that. So just to take those into consideration. But I probably wouldn't ever own one of those just for those reasons, even though I've owned some in the past. But yeah.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. I just, value my hearing and my lack of migraines.
Especially when they're sitting on your shoulder and they still squawk, and you're like, "Okay, dude,
Yeah, every once
my
in a while,
ears ringing."
Einstein, which eclectics are very capable of being very loud, and Einstein just isn't most of the time. But every once in a while, my kids will scare him, or somebody will do something, and I'll get one, and it's like, oh man, this is why I'm a Finch guy. Once a month, I might get one good squawk, and it's like, okay, all right, you win.
Right.
Yeah. All right, I'll go another bigger size bird, but in a different direction. So I've got button quail. I've got a bunch of button quail throughout the aviary. Um, I would not own any of the larger quail,
Yeah.
um, or the pheasants, the golden pheasants. And I might in at some point in the future, but you see people like Courtenay, Bob White, the Japanese quail.
Hmm.
Um, and they look cool, but they're just too big
Yeah.
for me for right now. So, you know, button quail poop is already pretty big compared to a button quail. Um, right now, button quail are kind of perfect because they clean up more mess than they make, but I think that
Yeah.
that ratio would probably be off. And I did at one point, I think I've told this story before. I sort of by accident bought these two Courtenay quail that were actually for food. That I was supposed to eat them, and I kept them as pets, but it very quickly became a problem. They crowed in the morning like a rooster, and they were loud, and
Yeah.
the males fought and all this other stuff. So yeah, I would not. The only quail I'm interested in currently is
Yeah.
buttons.
Well, and a lot of your larger quail they roost up in perches, right? So if you house them with smaller birds, very easily can disturb nest boxes, not intentionally, right? But if they fly up onto them to roost at night, things like that, they can easily disturb the breeding cycles of smaller birds. So growing up, we had bobwhite quails and we actually had chuckers. And my dad housed them in with our lovebirds and our cockatiels. So it wasn't as bad there. You've got the bigger nest boxes and whatnot. Cool story. And I wish that I could find, I know we've got photos of it somewhere. I'll have to ask my mom, see if maybe she can wrangle them up. But so we had a pair of bobwhites, and they were pretty tame birds. And we had them in with our parakeets, our budgeteer parakeets.
Mhm.
And our parakeets would land on the bobwhites and ride on their backs as they would run around like no lie, it was the funniest thing ever. And they would just land on their backs and just hitch a ride. And the bobwhites, they got to a point where they just got used to it. They wouldn't like try and like pull them off. They'd just be sitting on their back and they're just walking around the aviary getting a free ride. It was really cool. Something I'd never seen before. Like the parakeets didn't bite them or anything. They just would land on their back to go for a little stroll through the park. It was pretty funny. So,
That sounds like Budgie. I saw a Budgie once that was trained to. Someone took like a small-ish remote-controlled monster truck and glued
uh-huh.
the controller on top of it, and it was at a bird show, and the Budgie was driving the car around the bird show,
That's
laughing
awesome.
maniacally the whole way. It was very, very fun to see.
That's cool. Yeah, I love the budgies. I don't own any right now, but they're one of my favorite birds. But
Well, I got my
um,
new pair for next year, so maybe I'll get
do
you one
you?
up there.
Oh,
Yeah.
you have to send me a picture of them when you got a chance. So I'll probably say my last species. And I don't think this is one that I will never own, but I just currently don't own. And I would have to work my way up to it. And again, would have to specialize a lot of my diets and aviaries towards them. But a lot of like your tanager species that are more of a soft foods bird,
Mhm.
I would put them as pretty fragile, similar to a lot of like your smaller waxbill African species, things like that. They tend to not be as disease resistant or and obviously their diet specialized a lot more fruit and insects instead of seed. I think they're incredibly beautiful birds. They come from the rainforests and jungles, but I don't know. I would be scared because they're really expensive, and I don't know if I have the confidence to spend a lot of money and not guarantee that, even though I put forth a ton of effort to give them everything that I would hope that I could give them, and they still die. That's what's
Yeah.
holding me back. So I don't know if I'll ever own them, but I currently don't, and I'm super hesitant to move towards that group just because what I currently have now is not the right setup for that type of bird.
Yeah. All right. I'll do my last one. And this is, I know we haven't talked about this one yet. And maybe it's an obvious one. Chickens. I don't own chickens. The main reasons are so much bigger. So all the bigger bird downsides we've talked about applied. We do eat a ton of eggs. I got a bunch of little kids, so it probably would make financial sense, especially with the
Yeah,
price of eggs a few months ago.
yeah.
But I'd have to have like a whole nother setup. They obviously can't go in the
Yeah.
aviary, and they can't be loose in my yard. They'll just get picked off by birds of prey. So I don't want. I got enough to do on Saturdays already. So no chickens for me.
Did I tell you that I have chickens?
Yeah, I've seen you posted it. I've
Yeah,
seen.
I've posted them a few times.
Yeah,
The little Sarama chickens are like the smallest chicken in the world. Um,
but you've also got slightly older kids that can help
yeah,
more and a bigger yard than I do.
they
And yeah,
they truthfully they've become one of my favorite birds.
well, I'm sure it's super entertaining watching the kids chase them.
Yeah, so they've mostly feathered out. I've got two younger ones that are still getting there, but I know I've got four total. I'm gonna have two roosters and two hens. So I'll have to figure out once the roosters mature, we'll probably have to get rid of one so they don't fight. But the oldest rooster, he's starting to crow. So technically, we're in city boundaries. We're not supposed to have roosters just because they're loud. And
Mhm.
I've heard from other breeders that the Serama chickens, because of their size, the rooster's call actually is pretty quiet and pretty unique. So this last week he started to crow. Dude, I've got to get a video. It is the funniest thing I've ever heard. It literally sounds like a kid dying. And when he did it the first, we had him in the backyard. They were just roaming around, and we were sitting on our little patio, and I heard it, and I like looked at my wife, and I was like, "What was that?" Like I thought someone was like dying, and he did it again, and I was like, "Was that the chicken?" You know, and they're all named. His name's Flash, and I'm like, "Was that Flash?" And she's like, "I think it was." It was the funniest thing ever. I've got to get
That's
a
so
video of it.
funny.
He sounds awful, but it's actually really funny and cute at the same time. And I'm glad it's pretty quiet because then hopefully I could still keep him and my neighbors don't get mad at me. But
You
yeah,
might get
it
a
was pretty fun.
911 call because someone thinks a kid's getting murdered and get
I
busted that
know.
way.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, it's if I can get a video, I'll post it on for you guys. It's pretty good to see. So pretty comical.
That's really funny. The jig might be up. Just,
Yeah.
there's been a murder.
Yeah, right. So,
All right.
well, all right.
Well, that sums up an episode of Birds We Don't Keep and Why. Drop down in the comments. Tell us about birds you don't keep and why. Maybe you used to keep them and something happened or whatever. So, always good stories in the comments off of this one. Check
Yes.
out New Zealand Pets. Chris, if they can't find New Zealand Pets, but they want to talk to you and ask you how to find it,
Yeah,
where would they go?
reach out to me, Facebook, YouTube, it's Bird Nerd. Instagram is Bird Nerd 4. It's got the same logo, the hyacinth macaw, because that is my favorite bird, which is funny because I'll never own it probably, like we covered today. But yeah, reach out to me. I've had a lot of people reach out. We've had several, like I said earlier, reach out and say that they're looking at products and buying some seed from our new sponsor at New Zealand. So super appreciative of that, and hopefully your birds will like it. That is the goal, like Jay said earlier. Is the purpose of this is for the birds, right? Not for any financial gains there. So please continue to reach out to me. Jay, how about you? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, obviously. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Threads, which sucks. I'm on Reddit and Instagram. So yeah, Facebook DMs, Instagram DMs are open. Everyone, we've talked about this before, everyone always sends me, though, I'm so sorry to bother you. You're not bothering me. Ask us the questions. We want to help. So
Right.
find us, go to New Zealand. We'll link it below. Um, yeah, we love doing these. We're happy to do them, and this is a little fun one. And we'll catch y'all in the next one.
See you guys.